And my next guest is Ken Cherry, Epic founder and president. Ken Cherry is a former Texas State MUFON director, author, and investigator. He has founded the Epic Voyagers investigation team and Epic Voyages Radio. Throughout his years of experience, he is most fascinated with the 2008 Stephenville UFO event and sightings. He is the author of the fictional novel Marc Slade Investigates the Stephenville UFO, which serves to leak truths of Ken's very own experience while experiencing the Stephenville UFO event. And he is also a friend of mine. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be among your first guests here.
Yeah, well, I could not have you as my first guest because were it not for you, I wouldn't even have the show.
No.
So I wanted to thank you for the opportunities that you had given me on Epic Voyages Radio, which I'm sure a lot of the Inception Radio Network people are familiar with.
Well deserved, Alan.
So Ken, Epic's gone through a little bit of a change recently. Is there anything that you want to talk about as far as the structure, or is the show going to keep going on as it is?
Well, as you know, Epic is an all-volunteer organization, and we are proud to have many folks from the paranormal world, ufology, cryptozoology, and so forth. And people come, they give their time, and most generously in many cases, and as their plate becomes full, then they move on. And we've been very, very fortunate to find other folks who are equally well qualified in other aspects that we bring on, and we think that it helps to keep our show fresh and brings new perspectives and new ideas to the program. So we're into our 6th year and still going strong. So I expect under the current leadership of Dr. Joseph Burks that we will continue for years to come.
Yeah, I hope so, and I'm sure the audience obviously responds positively to the program. My personal experience being on the show was, nothing but gratifying as far as hosting. I mean, that was, I didn't even realize that I would want to do this more often, but you actually opened that door and just gave me that opportunity. I mean, you've done a lot of researching on your own and through MUFON, but when you do that, how much do you use your gut, and how much do you rely on data and sort of combine those two to make an assessment?
Well, gut is something, I guess, when you boil it down, is based upon real life experience applied to any given situation. I guess you could call it gut. I wouldn't call it instinct. I would call it something that's built upon, a firm base of experience. So that and proof, of course. I had a very early experience in my life, and I was about 7 years old, of a very dramatic UFO sighting. And while that would tend to make most people think that, I'm a believer and I'm going to think anything I hear is true, actually it's had sort of the opposite effect. Since I know what I saw myself and I believe in the reality of it, I'm looking for evidence of this in all the cases that I'm looking into. I'm probably more of a critic and tend to drill down more on what the person is saying and what evidence is available than perhaps a lot of investigators who haven't had any sort of experience.
I never asked you before. Have you ever investigated someone who's actually had an abduction experience?
Yes, many times.
And then what is that like to talk to someone for the first time? And I'm guessing often they're opening up to you more than maybe someone else.
Well, in almost every case that I can recall, it was a very emotional retelling of their experience. They all seem to have this memory burned into their, something that they just could not escape. And some of them, it had really tragic effect on their lives. In a number of cases, it led to loss of jobs and very often breakups with the spouse. Because they just became so obsessed with it that it was something that they just could not shake.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because I feel like when you see movies made or documentaries, the focus sort of always seems to be on the experience and what happened, rather than what happened after the experience, because the assumption often is these people are just telling a tall tale for attention or just to spice life up a little bit. And in fact, our lives are affected detrimentally in a lot of negative ways afterwards. So that sort of tells one that, hey, this person is not doing this for their own benefit. They're telling something they believe.
Absolutely. And although many of the stories that I heard tend to be of a benign nature, it still affected them dramatically. I guess it's just the human psyche just trying to deal with this, something that's just so out of their reality that it's difficult to cope. It's not that they were in any way harmed or threatened physically, but the mental trauma is very real for them.
And does that affect you, or do you sort of just take it with ease?
I mean, you can't help but be, somewhat sympathetic and, kind of feel for the individual. But I would think that the regularity of the same type of reaction from these abductees, contactees, is something that if someone were to just stand there and offhandedly tell me, "Oh, I was abducted last night," that would be, and they took me and they did this and that. They're rather unemotional about it. I would have my doubts, because it would be so far outside of my experience in dealing with contactees, abductees, that it would make me look further. And then in one case I looked and the person said, "Oh, no, I never watched science fiction or whatever," and looked in their bookshelf, and it was full of science fiction books and had Whitley Strieber's famous book, Contact, with the big almond-eyed alien on the front cover. So.
Communion,
yeah, Communion. So that it does affect.
Well, I guess they would be just afraid to admit, because they didn't want you to judge them. Right? Could that be a possibility? Yeah.
True.
It seems to happen to people who are interested in it and people who are not interested in it. It seems to go both ways.
Exactly. I don't think Betty and Barney Hill were much into, that's that type of genre when they were abducted. So obviously, that is one of the more famous cases of abduction. And we did speak with Betty Hill. As a matter of fact, had an interview with her just prior to her passing. And her story was just as sharp and crisp and firm as ever. And, we did see the dress with the residue on it that had been analyzed. And I mean, it was just like it was yesterday for her. So, and of course, some of the things that she was able to reveal under hypnosis that have been confirmed since then, all tend to support, her and Barney's story.
Yeah. So what's next for Ken Cherry?
Well, as you know, we've experimented with a number of things in the TV world, and we're still hoping to come up with a paranormal program. We do have a pretty well-known producer who's very long resume in producing UFO and paranormal type programming, who is working with us, and hopefully we'll come up with something in the near future that we'll be able to offer. Don't think we're going to be able to call it epic. The studios all seem to want something that's a little more grabby, and so but anyway, those are just things that are sort of in the wings that we're working on.
Ken, thank you so much for opening the door to me to have a relationship and work with Epic. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine.
Well, thank you, and it has been a pleasure to work with you as well, Alan.
All right, cool. All right, so Ken Cherry, author of Marc Slade Investigates, the Stephenville UFO. You can get more information about his book at the epicvoyagers.com website. And, of course, Epic Voyagers Radio plays every Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and is rebroadcast Fridays on the Dark Matter Digital Network. All right, Ken, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Marc Slade Investigates, the Stephenville UFO. Written by renowned UFO investigator Ken Cherry, the Stephenville UFO tells the story of the infamous UFO sightings of Stephenville, Texas in 2008. Author and researcher Ken Cherry has woven an intricate tale that shines a light on an ominous chapter of American history and proving that not everything is as it seems. Marc Slade Investigates, the Stephenville UFO is now available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com,